For today's lesson, we're going to do a sketch of Sacagawea. So you'll need a piece of drawing paper, a pencil with an eraser, and some colored pencils. With her baby on her back and her husband at her side, Sacagawea and Lewis and Clark left Fort Madden on April 7, 1805. Every member of the Corps of Discovery was hired for a special skill such as hunting, woodworking, blacksmithing, sailing, etc. At about 18 years old, Sacagawea was the only female among some 40 older men. Sacagawea proved to be essential to the expedition. She had the skills and abilities to offer much assistance. Her knowledge of native languages was a great help during the journey. She communicated with other tribes and translated for Lewis and Clark. She was also very good at finding edible plants. Sacagawea also was valuable to the expedition because she represented peace and trustworthiness. A group of males traveling with a woman and her baby appeared less menacing. Sacagawea and her baby allowed others to feel that it was safe to befriend the newcomers. So for today's lesson, we're going to do a sketch of Sacagawea, and this is where we're going to begin. This is a sample of how to sketch out a face, which is not easy, the facial features. So we're going to begin with this circle for her main part of her head, add in kind of this extra piece down here, this angled piece for the jawline. And then we're going to do our guiding lines where you put to help you line up where the eyes, the nose, and the mouth should go, so it looks symmetrical and appropriate for a face. So remember, this is a sketch. We don't have to be perfect artists to do this, and it's for our Lewis and Clark journals. So you're just going to do your best work and give this a try. So we're going to have Sacagawea and then her baby in the cradle board or papoose in the other side. So on this side, I'm going to kind of think about half my paper. I don't want to fold it, but I'm going to draw her in this section. So to start with, I'm going to draw her head, and I'm going to try to make a sketch of that circle. And just do your best if you can do that circle. And then the lines and we can go in and fix the lines that we don't need, like the extra sketch marks that we don't need later. But for now, just sketch that in. And then we're gonna draw in just a little bit of that jawline. And I'm gonna angle that in. And then we can always fix this later if it feels like it's too wide or too narrow. So for our guide marks for the facial features, we're going to draw a line straight down the middle, and this one's going to eventually be erased because it's just our guideline, so do it lightly. And then when you think about the circle, or from this point to this point, about halfway is going to be about 3/4 of the circle. It's going to be about here. And so we're going to draw a guiding line across here. It's about halfway from the top of the circle to the top of the jawline, the chin, but it's about 3/4 of the way around the down from the circle. And then we're going to draw a second guiding line right here, just about where the jawline begins, and sketch that across too. And remember, these are just guidelines; they don't have to be perfect. So we're going to draw the eyes. And begin with just a simple curved line up. I'm going to try to do both the same way, but the same size, like a upside down C. And then connect those with another C shape. I'm going to try to make them as close as I can. This one needs to be a little bit larger. But those are going to be her eyes. And I'm going to go ahead and do some eyebrows above those. And then her eyes, I'm going to do a circle inside for the iris, and then the pupil. That helps it look a little bit more realistic. And remember, if you need more time to do one part, or if you want to erase it and start over again, you can always pause the video and then catch up with us afterwards. So the nose is going to go in this section, and this is really the center, but I'm going to have the nose, her nose kind of go around this way. I'm just drawing the side, kind of the side view of it. Too many lines right here, it's hard to see what I'm doing, but I'm trying to draw kind of that curved line. I'm going to erase some of these guidelines so you can see what I'm doing. And so I've drawn this nose, maybe it needs to be a little bit more pronounced. And then the mouth will go in this section, and back in that time, really photographs of people, they're not smiling, they weren't, you know, they kind of had to sit a long time to be photographed, so they wouldn't have been smiling. I'm going to have her kind of turned down a little bit more. So I'm going to have her be a little bit more serious or solemn mouth. And show the center of her lips a little bit there. And again, remember what you learned about Sacagawea. We don't really know exactly what she looks like. There was no photographs or sketches, artist pictures of her at the time. And so everyone is doing just their best guesses based on Lewis and Clark, the journal entries they did to describe her in a few places. So I'm actually can erase this mark too. And when I look at this, I feel like her jaw, I probably made it a little too long. So I'm just going to make that a little shorter. I'll make it too pointy. And that's a pretty good place to start. The next part I'm going to do is her hair, and I'm going to draw her hair. She was described as wearing her hair in braids, what we would call braids. So I'm going to draw the top of her hair here. This would have been her hair parted here in the center, and her bangs kind of being pulled to the side. And this would have been darker color. We can color in that in later. And then her hair would have gone down the side of her face. And so I'm going to draw what I'm going to try to make look like braid marks, and they kind of would alternate. And then they would continue down the side of her shoulder until they got to a place where she would have, I'm just going to make some marks, she would have tied it in like a bands of leather, and then after that it would have been loose. So that's what I think her braided hair would look like down one side. And then down the other side, the same thing. I might not be able to see this side as well, so I might kind of try to, I'm just making alternating curved lines that don't really line up. They alternate to show that hair is braided. And then I'm not gonna make them as even either, just so it makes it look realistic. When you look at someone with braided hair, they're not always sitting exactly in the same position on their shoulders. And then I'm gonna make her like her shoulder. So we need her kind of neck view here. Would probably be about here, and it's going to come out to her shoulder. I'm just going to do the top of her shoulders for this picture. I'm going to take it all the way down to the end of my paper. And maybe you aren't going to show her arms. Maybe you're going to show her like maybe she's wearing a blanket, but we do need to show kind of where her neckline would be. So I'm just doing a couple lines here to show, like a triangle, to show that's where her neckline would be. And if you do want to show her arms, it would be, you could just show like this. And then you can go in, I don't really love how her lips look, or I might work on her eyes a little bit, or her nose, but you get the general idea of how you sketch this. And we'll come back in and color later, but you get the general idea of how to put the features on and try to make it as realistic as we can. So the next part will be on doing her baby.
Cradle boards were used for the first few months of an infant's life when a portable carrier for the baby was a necessity. They were made of different materials, but they all contained a firm frame to protect the baby, a footrest, and a rounded covering to protect the baby's head from weather. They also included decorations such as beads and amulets that were often attached to the headpiece to entertain the baby or even help them develop his or her eyesight. This is much like the baby carriers we use even today.
So you've seen some pictures and images of the cradle board or that she would have carried her baby in throughout this whole journey, which I think is amazing. So we're going to draw a sketch of this. And again, remember, we're just doing a sketch. Doesn't have to be perfectly realistic. That's a challenge. So we're going to do kind of a big oval shape to begin with. And like kind of an elongated egg look. I don't think it's that pointy at the end. So kind of sketch in what you think the cradle board shape would be. And what I noticed about these cradle boards is that they would have had like a covering here at the top. So if this is, we can shade this in, but there's kind of like a top portion that would have shaded the baby from either the sunshine or the rain, so that you can kind of sketch that in. We can add some color later. And then the baby, it's like almost the only thing that's popping out that you can see of the baby is its face. So I'm going to draw as best I can a circle here. And let me try to keep the line that I like the best. That looks, and try to make it kind of proportional. The baby's head would have been here. And you can have the baby with a little bit of hair. He might have a little bit of hair at that point. And then I'm gonna put just his eyes sleeping. Just a cute little face there. And then the detail of the cradle boards, I'm gonna put like X marks here because the lacing I thought was really interesting. We would have laced up this, like tying this up so the baby is secure, which is kind of like the straps or the buckles we have today. So that's really what they would have used to make sure the baby stayed secure and safe and cozy in there. Babies love being in cozy, wrapped up, safe places like that. So this is just a very basic sketch, but you get the idea of this. And what I think is really interesting is the fact that she took this newborn baby, carried him on her back the entire journey outside, and she was the only woman, to my knowledge, in this group of about 40 men. So that is a fascinating part of Sacagawea. I think she's very heroic and amazing mother to have done that for that long of a journey with her newborn baby. As the final part of our picture, we're going to add a little bit of color, and you can use either some colored pencils or crayons to do adding these details. And I'm going to base my coloring based on some of the information we have heard about what Sacagawea would have looked like. And she would have had dark hair. That's what Lewis and Clark described her to have. And again, if you want to keep this looking more like a sketch that you're doing in your journal, you can just add kind of just light coloring, and you can just kind of go over your pencil marks. And I'm going to make her braid really, I want the lines to stand out, and then I might go back in and color it. I want these marks to really show her braid. And then I can go back and shade it in. So you get the idea. And her clothing would have been, as described, made out of animal skins and fur. And it was decorated with shells and beads that were colored. And so it might not have been like a dark brown shade, but I also think I wanted to represent some of that coloring that they would have had on their clothing. And so it's hard to know exactly what the patterns would have looked like, but I might do some lines of beads around the edges. Native American beadwork can be quite beautiful and very detailed. And I'm just adding a little bit of touch there so you can kind of see, you can make other designs as a pattern in here. They said that the colors were, you know, like yellows, reds, blues, black. And so maybe I can put a design in here that I think might be representative, because we do know those colors were used, and shells and beads, like I said, would have been dyed these colors. So you can get as intricate as you like on that, but that gives you an idea. Didn't finish her hair here. And then the binding on her hair, was described as having been made out of leather, animal skin, and so I'll try to make that realistic, both of them. And then you can shade this in if you like, or just add it, you know, keep it kind of sketched in. It's going to be totally up to you. And again, her eyes would have been, again as described, kind of a dark, probably a dark brown color, from what it looks like in the journal entries. And you can keep going with that. The same thing goes for the papoose. Again, it was made out of wood or animal skins for the cradle board, and so you can color it in kind of more natural colors to begin with. And then they would have decorated these, as we've seen from pictures that I showed in the video, from some replicas or some other original cradle boards that are in museums. And so color that in as you like. And then I might make these, I want to really make these tie marks stand out. But then you can add some detail to, again, if you want, the baby might have had some dark hair, just like, maybe like his mom. And then you could also add detail. You can color this in, this kind of animal, you know, the blankets out of furs. And then you could also add some of the beading details that would have been part of this. And so you can color that in and then add the details. So maybe you're going to add some designs as well. Maybe I can show some of the cradle boards show other like ties coming down. And those would have been done with some beading. So you can go back and look at some of the pictures I added in this video for some inspiration on how you might color. I'll show some beads at the end of these. And you can go back and decorate and add some detail to this and make it your own, and look back at some of the references I showed, and continue finishing your sketch of Sacagawea and her baby. And then you can also, if you want, you can even put her name up here. And I've seen many ways to spell her name with a J, but I believe this is the most accurate. Okay, you can maybe even add that if you like and make it even fancier, but you get the idea, and have fun coloring in and finishing up your sketch.